Rana is Professor of History at the University of Oxford, where he's Director of the China Centre.
The meeting between President Xi Jinping of China and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger is a historic moment. That's literally true, because Henry Kissinger is the last person of significance left who was central to one of the major historical moments of the 20th century, the reopening of the relationship between China and the United States, which, of course, was marked by President Richard Nixon visiting China in 1972, but the secret trips made previously by Henry Kissinger laid the ground for that opening up. And everything that's happened since 1972 in terms of the relationship between the West and China, and the US and China in particular, is a product of that set of meetings, that introduction, that reopening that Henry Kissinger undertook back over half a century ago.
He's 100 years old. These days he's a private citizen. Realistically, what can Kissinger hope to achieve?
I think that what Henry Kissinger is most noted for at the moment as a private citizen is someone who can speak to the highest levels of government, both in the United States and in China. There aren't that many people left or around who can actually undertake that kind of relationship. So it is the case that even though, of course, there's no official role for Henry Kissinger in the US government, and again, it would be unusual for someone at the age of just over 100 to actually have any official position of that sort, he can, I'm sure, speak to the State Department, speak to the White House, speak to the people who really do make decisions in Washington. At the same time, as we see today, he is in a position to visit China and to meet the very highest leader in the Chinese system, and that, of course, is Xi Jinping. So being able to pass messages at that very elevated level and give his own geopolitical analysis, his own geopolitical spin gained from more than half a century of having lived in that world, that's the unique position that Henry Kissinger has.
And how would you characterize this geopolitical relationship between the United States and China just at the moment?
The relationship with the United States and China at the moment is more tense than it has been probably for 60 or 70 years, ever since actually that moment that Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon went with that American delegation to China in 1972, where they met then paramount leader Mao Zedong and Prime Minister Zhou Enlai. Since then, the relationship in areas from trade to military to security issues has become very tense in many ways, although it's good to see that in the last few months there have been visits by high-level US actors, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen amongst them, coming to try and lower the temperature between both sides. And it may be that Henry Kissinger's visit is another sign that even if the relationship, let's be frank, remains quite cool in many ways, it nonetheless is one where the temperature is being lowered rather than being raised.